Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a cool project using a flower cane, a mic shift and some stamping. So it's inspired by these beads that I made a few years ago. So you can see that I have a flower here and a nice gold mic shift in the background, and I really like these beads, but I wanted to revise them and make them into something better. So this is what we are going to be doing today. So the flower of choice today is a Pansy cane that I made on one of my Patreon tutorials. Let me just bring that over. Oops, there you can see what it looks like there. And I'll just bring over a few sizes because I do have a few sizes. Now you can use any flower that you wish to use, but I'm going to be using this beautiful purple pansy today. So I'll put those off to the side because we're not going to need those yet, but we are going to need a skinner blend between silver primer and pearl white primer, and that is what I have here. You're also going to need a texture stamp of some kind. I'm using Lisa Pavelka's foliage stamps, which is one of my favourite stamps of hers. I really like the background, and that is the same mica shift that I used on the back here, and it's a really nice mica shift. Whoops, dropped the bead. Okay, so you're going to need to grab your stamp and we're going to spray some water on that. Okay, and I'm just going to use this bottle. It's a nice big spray bottle. There we go. Give it a good amount of water. Bring over your stamp. Place that over, and then I like to spray the top of my stamp just so that when I press it in I'm not going to be having it stick to me. As clay is pretty soft, and I like to press my clay in with my fingers. At first I actually like to press it in all the way. Sometimes, depending on how hard the clay is, because as you can see here it lifts out the stamp a little bit. So I just rolled it a bit there, but then I like to do the rest with my fingers just because I find that I get a better imprint, and so long as the clay is soft this works really well. So I'll work from one end to the other, pressing in because we want a nice deep texture for our mic shift. Okay, lift that out and you can see how that looks. Looks really nice. Okay, so now you'll pop your stamp off to the side to dry, and you'll want to dry top, bottom and your tile. Okay, now bring over blade, just trim up. Okay, and when you have pieces of skinner blends like this, just keep them together like that, and it means that you'll still have some of that blend to work with. And these ends you can take and just pop that back into your silver and pearl white pile. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to gently press it onto the tile so that it is stuck, and I'll bring over my flexible tissue blade. I'm gently going to start shaving, and go slowly, don't rush this process because you don't want to go too deep. The shallower your mic shift is, the prettier it will look. So I'll carry on shaving just like that until I've done the entire sheet. Okay, so here it is now that I have shaved it. And so I'm just going to bring over a piece of plain printing paper because we want to burnish this. So grab a piece. Here we are. And what you want to do is you just want to pick this up off of your tile pop this onto a piece of paper because then it's not going to stick badly. Take another piece, and it has to be plain printing paper, and then just smooth over it with your hands first, and then just give it a bit of a roll with your roll. And now not only does this smooth it out better, I found it gets rid of bumps a bit easier, it also keeps it clean. So you'll just take your roller and burnish, and the nice thing about having it on a piece of paper is you can turn it while you're doing this and just burnish for a little while until this thing is completely smooth. So if you need to check it, just lift up one corner and see if you have got rid of all of those bumps, but I can still feel through the paper that I need to burnish quite a bit more. Okay, so when you've finished burnishing it, it should be completely flat. You shouldn't be able to see any lines, so hopefully I can direct it there. You can see there as I direct the light on it that you can't see any lines or anything else, so it's completely flat. That is what you want. So just set that aside for a minute. Don't leave it on there for a long time. So if you need to go do something else, take it off of the piece of paper because you don't want it leaching. But I'm just going to be cutting some slices of my canes so it can sit on there for a little while. But if you're going to take a little while, don't leave it on there. So I'm just going to take slices, and I want to take them as thin as I can because you don't want this translucent messing with your background too much. And I'll just take a few slices from each size that I have there, and then I'll show you how to apply them nicely to your mica shift. Okay, so I've cut up our pieces. So now if you have any defects on your mica shift that you don't like, and I don't have any of those, but if you've accidentally got a speck somewhere and you can't get it off, you can always just place a cane slice over it to cover it up, and that's just a nice thing to have in case you have a little accident. But I don't see any on here. So I'm just going to place all of my cane slices like this, and I'm going to start from the largest and work my way down to the smallest. Okay, so here's how it looks. Now I'm going to bring over a sheet again. Okay, and I'll just give it a quick roll in one direction and in the other. And then I'm going to just start burnishing just like I did before. And until I can't feel any more bumps and there aren't any more lines, I will keep burnishing. Okay, so here it is. It should be nice and flat. Now you want to pick it up off of the paper. And be careful when you do this, because you don't want to be cutting your paper and you don't want to be slicing through your sheet. So I like to go a little way, turn, go a little way, turn, and so on. And then with these fairly small sheets, ones that aren't stretching, the legs of the page, this works pretty well. Okay, you just need to watch the blade as well. I'm using a fairly blunt blade for this so that I don't cut myself or anything like that. Okay. Then just go turn the page over. And I'll press that back down. I'm not going to press. I'm just going to just gently stretch it out, because now we're going to do some inking. So I'll just pop this to the side, bring over Lisa Pavelka's love letter stamp, and I like this stamp. I really like this one. It's one of my favourites. And I'm also going to bring some black Stays On ink, and this is jet black. And now you want to work with this quite quickly and just give your stamp a real nice ink up. Okay, and I'll just bring over this again. Have this ready to go. Okay, and I'll just pop the stamp aside quickly, bring this over, lay it down, and then gently press. Now you need to go fast with this because you don't want it to dry on you. Here we go. I'll just put that away, and then you want to go and close up your stays on ink pad. Now some areas you might miss. That's okay. Okay, now you want to set this aside to dry for, oh, I'd say maybe around 5 minutes, just to make sure that this ink dries, because you don't want that ink wet when we're going to go and burnish it again, just to flatten out, because the stamp will create a few lines, as you can see. Okay, so let it dry a little while. Pop this back on. I'm just going to give it a gentle roll. Now, because I am going to be using ice resin, I don't need to burnish this too much. So I'll just burnish it a little bit, or roll a little bit, I guess. And there we are. And that should just flatten it out a bit. So if I feel this, it's flat. Now, I am going to be using ice resin. So as I mentioned before, I am using ice resin, but you can also use, you can turn this into a cabochon if you wanted to. Look quite nice as a cabochon. You could make this bigger, maybe make a bracelet or a collar necklace. There's lots of things that you could do with it. So I've decided on my cutters, but before we do that, we need to do the backing, because we just want to take this all in one cut, which will make life a lot easier. So I'll bring over our backing. Okay, so I took about 1 part silver to 1 part pearl white, mixed it together using the leftovers from my mica shift, and this is what I got. And this was rolled out on my thicker setting. Now I'm just going to bring over a roller I got from eBay. I'm going to press that down and start rolling. There we go. And that creates a nice background texture, and so I'll pop that on the back of the other piece. Okay. Just going to turn this upside down for a minute. Pop this backing on. And I'm gently going to tap it on. Okay. And I'll turn that around. And now I'm going to work on this piece of paper while I cut out my pieces. And I've got these really cool cutters, and these are my Bora, these are my Bora Neo set. I'll provide a link to them. Okay, and so I need to position these two in the middle. And I just wanted that I'm going to be able to get a pansy, there we go, in each. And I'll bring over the next set. Okay. This one's feeling a little lonely. Can't find any pansies to sit with. Let's see if I move that down here. No. Okay, I'm going to move that one up there because it will look better. Okay, so I'm basically trying to keep a skinner blend, but this part's all silver, so it'll be fine if I just move that one up there. Okay, so now I'm going to keep them in their positions, and I'm individually going to just press down on each one. Oops, get back to where it goes. There we are. just going to remove them. And now it's because it's on a piece of paper that it's sticking in the cutter, and that is something that's just going to happen. And we'll be able to work those out. There we go. Move this out the way. And now you want to take it and you want to gently get that out of the cutter. There, that's number one. And then I'll get out all of the other ones. Just go slowly with it and they'll come out pretty easily. Okay, and so here is what they look like, and I'm quite happy with that. So now you want to go to each one and just use your finger to gently smooth along the sides. So I don't want to use a smear along these sides, I just want to smooth them off. Okay, and if you see any fingerprints, smooth off the fronts too. Okay, and then when you've done that, pop them on a piece of paper, just like this one, with another piece of paper over the top of them, plain printing paper again, and pop them into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And then when that is done, we'll actually ice resin them, because I don't want to sand these because of the ink on top. It will sand out the entire thing, so we're not going to sand these ones. So before you put them in the oven, make sure that you've got rid of all of those fingerprints and no marks or anything like that. It's very important. So just smooth like this, and then you won't have to sand. I will sand the edges though, that I definitely will do, but I wouldn't worry about the rest of it because otherwise we'll sand off this lettering. Okay, so these are out of the oven and they're looking beautiful. And these ones I've already sanded the edges. I'll show you with one that I haven't sanded quickly. So here's the one that I haven't sanded. But there's what it looks like so far. Really happy with those. And then I had some leftover bits and pieces from cutting these out, so I made some nice ovals. Okay, so these have all been sanded already, so let me put those to the side, and I'll bring over my polishing papers. You'll just go from 400 grit and sand the edges. I don't want to sand the back. Really? Don't need to sand the back, to be honest. You can pop some Renaissance wax or varnish if you want to on the sides, but I think just a nice sand on the sides to even them up. And the back's already quite nice, so I'm quite happy to leave it as it is. So you just sand like that. Move on to your next grit, which would be 600 in my case, and just continue through your grits until you're happy. I go up to 8,000, and then when we've done that, we can move on to creating our resin coat for them. Now you don't want to sand the fronts of these beads because you will sand off this lettering. What you could do if you wanted to, I don't think it's going to work as well as just doing it all together in one bake. But what you could do is you could just create the mica shift, then pop the canes on, and then cut your beads out, sand them, and then you could try stamping the lettering on and baking again. But I don't think that you would get as nice lettering, and I don't think it would be as permanent on the clay. I haven't tested it, but you could do that. Just do some testing first and see if it works okay. So I just need to go through my final two just quickly, and then I can show you how nice and shiny it is, and then we can pop our resin on. There we go, super quick. So here, let me see if you can see that light shine to it. I don't want to go and buff it or anything, but it's got a nice shine to it now. Okay, so now I'll bring over my resin mat. Sorry about the colour. Okay, and you will pop your beads on that. But before we do that, you're going to need your resin. So I've got an ice resin plunger here. And I find that this is just much easier to use than the individual bottles. And I got this one from Linda's Art Spot. And the nice thing about this is it measures out the ice resin in equal amounts, because it's 1 part resin to 1 part hardener, and so you don't have to do your measuring, which is the hardest part when it comes to this resin. So let me just open it up and then gently hold this and wait for any bubbles. Like let me see if I can show you there. There's a bubble there that's busy rising. So you just want to get it so that the bubbles are a little bit out of the way before you squeeze, because then you'll push out a bubble and that means they won't have measured it right. So it's quite important that you just let this sit upside down for a little while, so that bubble will rise up. And don't worry, it won't come out of the bottom of the plunger. It's just going to sit there while you wait for it. It will only come out when you actually push on the plunger. So my bubble's well out of the way. So now I'm going to start pressing. Okay, and you need to let it sit for a little while because the resin goes out slower. So let's see, I'm going to need a bit of resin for that, so just squeeze out a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so that resin's going to sit a little while, so just wait until it drops off like that, and then suck your plunger back in, so you suck all of your resin back in, and then pop your cap back on, and then put that out of the way. Okay, now you'll just bring over your stir stick. I'm just going to be using a skewer, and you want to mix these parts together. Now ice resin has, depending on what temperature it is, I found that it can have 15 to 45 minutes working time. If it's like right in the middle of summer for you and it's hot in your room, you want to work with it quickly because it's going to have 15-minute working time. On the other level of the spectrum, if it is cold, you're going to have up to 45 minutes working time unless you warm up your room. So just be aware of what the temperature is going to do to the ice resin. Now if it's hot, it's going to be a lot more viscous, and so you'll be able to stir it and mix it a lot quicker. If it is cold, it's going to be more sludgy, and so you're going to need to mix it slower. I prefer my ice resin colder because it means that I have a longer working time, even though I am going to have to mix it longer. And so I don't mind if I get a little bit of bubbles in here, because once I have taken this and stirred it enough, I can quickly blow out most of the bubbles, apply it to the beads, and then I finally managed to get a UV lamp. And so I popped this under the UV lamp for maybe half an hour, and this actually, not half an hour, 15 minutes, and this warms up the resin quite a bit, and so bubbles rise to the surface quicker, and then I can blow them out. If your resin is warm, the bubbles will come out a lot easier, but you still have to hurry. So you can't spend like 6 minutes making sure that your resin is completely mixed, which is what I like to do when it's colder. So once I've got this on the beads, I can warm up the resin by putting it under a nice warm light, and then it becomes runnier, and so I can work to get the bubbles out easier. But only once I put it on the beads, because then there's also less risk of the beads having spills on your beads. So I prefer the resin colder. So now I'm just going to carry on mixing slowly, trying to get big bubbles. Big bubbles are easy to get out. It's the tiny mini ones that you want to avoid. So stir slowly, and when it's completely mixed in, which is in about 3 minutes to 6, you can apply this to your beads. Okay, so I've let this rest for maybe a minute or so, just to let these bubbles rise. Now I've got a nice long tube here that I use to blow bubbles. And you want to blow gently, because you don't want to be blasting your resin out of the cup. Blow gently and the bubbles will pop. There we go. So you can see we've got a few micro bubbles. those will rise out of the resin when we actually get it onto the beads. So here's our mat, and we'll start from one end of the mat, work our way to the other. Sorry about the colour, it completely clashes with everything that I put on here, but I couldn't find any other colours. Wish that I could get a white or maybe a black one. Anyway, so hopefully you can tell on the camera there how much difference that resin makes to the mica clay. So you can see here that it's really sparkly and beautiful. Here it's a little bit more dull. I'll just apply the resin. Now, another thing to think about is your resin is going to start reacting, because when you mix the two parts together, they start reacting and they start curing. So as they do that, they warm up a bit. Now it's not going to go to boiling temperature or anything like that you should worry about, but you will notice that it starts to become more runny as you work with it. So in summer that can become really problematic. So if I were you, in summer try working in a room that is fairly cool, if possible in an air-conditioned room, or store your resin somewhere coldish. I wouldn't store it in the fridge. Store it somewhere in like a kitchen cupboard where you store your other jars of food and things like that that just need to stay in a cool place, so that it's not sitting out in the sun or anything like that, so that when you get to it, it's really, really runny. Some people like their resin runny, but I find personally if we put it onto beads, it's a lot easier to work with it when it's kind of like a warm honey consistency. Working with something like thick honey isn't easy, but working with something like cream isn't very easy either. So you can see there the difference between those two and this one. So I'll continue covering all of my beads, then we'll give a final blow with the straw, and then I'll pop it in the UV lamp. Okay, so here are the beads. Now I've got you zoomed in quite close so that you can see me pop these bubbles. So again, use a very gentle blowing the pressure. Don't go all over the place, because then resin will fly off your bead and then there'll just be endless problems. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. And now by blowing, your breath is fairly warm, and so it's going to mist over the resin just a little bit, and so the resin's going to go a little cloudy. And so during that time, take that opportunity to look for areas that you might have missed. Like over here, I missed a little bit of resin over there, and over here too. So take that opportunity to look for areas where your resin might not have actually covered the bead. Like there, I missed a little bit there. And you can always blow over it again. Now it doesn't seem to hurt the resin at all, so long as you're not over blowing and so the resin is getting really wet. Just a little bit of condensation is fine. So watch, you'll see it mist over. There, hopefully you can see that misted over. There we go. So I can't see any more spots. So this is going to go in the UV lamp for about 12 hours. It takes about 12 hours for this to cure in a UV lamp, whereas if you just left it on your desk, it doesn't need any sunlight, any sort of light at all. You could leave it overnight in the dark and it would cure, but it is going to take around 24 hours to cure rock hard. In a UV lamp or in the sunlight, it will take about 12 hours to cure rock hard. If you left it in the dark, it will take about 12 hours to cure, but if you pressed it, you'd be able to mark it with your finger. So in the UV lamp or in sunlight, it will cure within 12 hours rock hard. So you'll be able to hit it, you'll be able to press your finger into it, won't make a single mark. So just be careful of thinking your resin's cured and then pressing it and then you get a fingerprint in there that you can't get rid of. So I'll let this cure for about 12 hours and then we can assemble our project. Okay, so I finished drilling through those, and so I've also got a piece of Acuflex, and I've just done the one end, and I'll show you how to do the other end. So this is all done. So I've also got some silver glass pearls. I'll just thread this on. They can be a little difficult to thread through sometimes. There we go. And I thought that these ones would look quite nice. Then we'll thread on our beads, grab another pearl, thread that on, and do that until you've threaded on all of your beads. Okay. Now I'll grab that and a charlotte crimp. Then I want to grab a crimp. Squish that tight, leaving just a little tail. Close the charlotte crimp over that crimp that we squished. And you would do this on the other side as well. Okay, then you'll grab jump ring and your clasp, thread that on and close it up. And there we are. That is what it's going to look like. So let me just bring this up. I can show you what it looks like. There we are. And I've just got a few of those little shavings that come from the holes. But there we are. That is what it looks like. Really happy with how that looks. I haven't quite done the ovals just yet, so here are our ovals I haven't done, and I'm going to finish these off and pop resin on them, but I just thought that would be a good idea to show you what it looks like if you don't put resin on them. So I do hope that that tutorial was helpful to you. If it was, please do let me know, as that is always helpful to me. And please do check out my Patreon account. That is where you will find the tutorial for how to make this cane. But you can use any cane that you want. You can use any flower cane you want. I do have a few tutorials on how to make flower canes on my YouTube channel already, so you can go through and have a look at that. You can also use any texture stamp that you want. For the mica shift, I just chose to use Lisa Pavelka's because I thought that would match nicely with the theme because of the flowers and the leaves. And you can use also any cutters that you would like, but I thought that these cutters would be quite nice, and I'll provide a link to where you can buy those cutters if you want to in the links below. And as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now!